Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. During an exhibition on indigenization of critical components currently being imported from foreign OEMs in the areas of UAVs and UAS underway at the Manekshaw Center in the national capital, the Chief of Defence Staff, CDS Anil Chauhan, spoke about Operation Sindoor, India's success in Operation Sindoor, and reiterated the need for developing indigenous air defence systems. The Chief of Defence Staff said the operation was shown us why indigenously developed counter-UAV systems built for our specific terrain are crucial. He further reiterated the need to invest, build and safeguard ourselves. Listen into what he said.
During Operation Sindoor on 10th of May, Pakistan had used unarmed drones and loiter ammunitions. None of them actually could inflict any damage to Indian military or civilian infrastructure. Most of them were neutralized through a combination of kinetic and non-kinetic means. And some of them, in fact, could be recovered in almost intact conditions. Let's switch on to Atmanirbharta for both this drones and counter-UAS systems. Operation Sindoor has showed us as to why indigenously developed counter-UAS systems and counter-UAS systems built for our terrain and our needs are crucial. We cannot rely on imported niche technology that are crucial for our offensive and defensive missions. We must invent and build and safeguard ourselves. Dependence on foreign technologies weakens our preparedness, limits our ability to scale up production, results in shortfall of critical spares for sustenance and round-the-clock availability.
Let's open up this discussion. Very important information that has been shared by the CDS. Major General G. Dwivedi, I'm going to start this conversation with you. How important and crucial does it become for the Indian Armed Forces, for the Defence Ministry to send out the right message, to give crucial information to general public and the media and the countries all across the globe, to inform them and give them right and transparent information about what went in the war that was initiated by Pakistan on India? And in this particular instance, the drones and the loitering munitions that were completely destroyed by India, as well as how they were incompetent in striking Indian territory, civilian territory or military installations.
Well, Megha, I think Chief of Defence Staff made a couple of points. And first and foremost was the exact or the accurate information on Operation Sindoor as to how India was able to blunt and thwart the Pakistan design, and how we are successful in actually shooting down their drones and also the loitering drones through our own indigenous system. In our indigenous system, we have multi-layered, because S-400 were there, Akash system, barracks, and also our air defense guns. So these are layered, and therefore we are able to integrate our capability, which is most important, because in today's warfare, until you are able to integrate your capability and until you are able to optimize what your potential is, only then you can get better of the adversary. The second point he made was indigenization, because you see, in today's world, until you are self-reliant, you cannot exercise full autonomy. You cannot pursue your own, doctrines or your own strategies, because you are dependent upon the foreign systems. So this is one thrust I think we need to give it a absolute revamping, and this has to be a national priority, because defense systems cannot be seen in isolation. They are part of your total industrial capacity, your R&D of the nation, and therefore they fit into one particular segment. So point is that we need to develop the complete ecosystem. And Megha, one point I want to make, that in our enthusiasm for indigenization, we should not compromise on operation capability. Just case in point, you see, in the Tejas Mark 1, we are not able to manufacture a single aircraft last year, because we are dependent upon America for F-404 engines. And there are certain critical technology which India will have to import, and at the same time we'll have to work on the indigenization. And my last point is, you see, in today's warfare, technology is the driving factor. Air power have become predominant. Until you have air domination, you cannot actually get the better of the adversary. And this has proven both air defense and air offensive capability, like in Israel-Tehran war or Israel-Iran war. Iran had the missile capability, but they had no air force. So therefore, Israeli air force was having a field day. So all I can sum up is that in today's world, we have to cater for information warfare, which CDS rightly pointed out, and we got to give a very clear message because information war has become very important. Second point, indigenization, it has to be balanced along with the operation capability. And thirdly, technology is a driver, and through technology only, we can formulate a national strategy and a war fighting doctrines. And in today's environment, national defense has become very critical, and it requires a national effort, not only the effort of the armed forces or the DRDO or such organization, but it has to be national effort, and this capacity has to be built across the board. Mega.
Right, absolutely. I'm also being joined right now by Major General Shashi Asthana. General Asthana, it is also relevant to point out that there has been a false narrative that has been built by Western media, by Pakistan, by China, who have been hell-bent on twisting the story, lying about the fact that the Rafales were hit by the Pakistani ammunition in the war. This has been negated, completely refuted by the Indian Armed Forces. Dassault, who is the manufacturer of Rafales, has also come out with an official statement in this regard, refuting any of these false claims being made by the vested parties. Why do you think these stakeholders and particularly the Western media are trying to peddle such narratives?
See, today's warfare is an integrated warfare, and in this warfare, the battle of narratives becomes equally important. Now, as a result of Op Sindoor, when some of the Western equipment and some of the Chinese equipment got a fair amount of bashing from India, their manufacturers also hijacked the narrative agenda to some extent. They were Chinese have a fair amount of shall I say influence in the Western magazines. They have bought spaces in the Western magazines, and the narrative was that in somehow the equipment which has been used by India, that should be downplayed, and their own equipment they should be able to mitigate the non-performance or poor performance of their equipment so that their equipment market doesn't go down. So basically, the arms dealers and the manufacturers of the equipment, they had an interest in showing that Pakistani equipment did well and Pakistani forces did well. And as far as the Indian equipment is concerned, perhaps there were damages and there were losses. So this was the basic idea underlying it. But notwithstanding that, the fact is that we did counter that narrative to some extent, to a great extent, I would put it this way. And subsequently, but there is a lesson learned, and the lesson learned is that the battle of narrative has to be given a fair amount of space. We have to have the organized structures for it, because imagine if the ceasefire was arrived at and decided at 3:35, had a message been given or a tweet been given by Indian establishment at 3:40, the entire foreigners trying to get into or taking that strategic space or the information space and trying to take claims would have been avoided, which we subsequently kept fighting for quite some time, and a fair amount of effort was put in fighting a false agenda or a false propaganda by the foreign powers. So accordingly, I think the battle of narratives will have to be perhaps fought, and it is an integral part of this integrated battlefield. We will have to work on that, and I am very sure that these lessons have been noted, and some organization will come up to start the information doctrine, the narrative building doctrine, and these have to be part of our future doctrines as well. Megha.
Right, absolutely. Group Captain Vienja, I'm going to come to you, and particularly about this sign of murmurs about how India has not been able to succeed in the information warfare that we have been fighting tooth and nail against Pakistan. In fact, China right now has been building a narrative using its envoys, using its embassies in the Southeast Asian countries, in Indonesia particularly, that has also ordered a number of Rafales from the French company, dissuading them from buying those Rafales, cancelling that deal, and then buying instead the Chinese fighter jets. Do you think this is going to also harm the reputation of Dassault for perhaps no fault of their own? But China is definitely using it as a propaganda for its benefit.
Well, any country will use it. Look, this narrative making, it is part and parcel of any of the modern warfare, as just our panelists have told you. And we have been seeing it with our own eyes, what is happening in the Russia-Ukraine war. It is the total blackout of the informations from the actual ground. It is the narrative which is being made by media over there. Over the Ukraine, it is entirely the Western media which is active, which is making the story, and that story is being sold the world over, including Indian media. All video clips, everything that we are getting, it is Western, approved or Western made. India should have realized this before the war actually started. We knew we had time in our hand, we had the initiative in our hand, and we should have gone well ahead preparing for the narrative or preparation for combating any false narrative generating from either Pakistan side or their promoters of their weapons. We should have foreseen this, but somehow we lagged there at that time. Now, coming back to Rafale, I think there is a bit of onus Indian armed forces or the Indian government should also take, because till the last date, we didn't categorically deny that our Rafales have not been hit. Mind you, this is I'm speaking, I'm armed forces personnel. If my narrative is straight, I would have, on the first day itself, when question was asked, what about the Rafale? We would have answered in no uncertain term that there is no losses on our side as far as the Rafale is concerned or any aircraft is concerned. But somehow we didn't want to possibly divulge what we intend to do or what is the capacity on our side. Fair enough, that is gone. Lessons, as just now General Astana has mentioned, lessons are learned. We have to be prepared for all those things. But look, what CDS was prompting about our own technology, our own scenario, and being able to manage our own resources with our own ammunitions. See, there were three things being fought there. Narrative, leave it separately. There was a new war started by Pakistan at this time, and that was the drone being used, whether their own or the Chinese drone or the Turkish drone. They were all handled by Akash Tir very well. And nowhere, none in the world had foreseen the efficacy of Akash Tir that was there. It was a combination of D4, Zulka 23, that is Indian modification, L70 gun, that is Indian modification, Tungushka, Strela, as well as Zulka 3, Shilka 3. All these were the part of that Akash Tir. So these were effectively neutralizing any wave of drones that were coming from the Pakistani side. Other than this, all missiles that was coming was being effectively handled by either the Akash air defense system or we had the Pichora missile 125, either or the Oshaka or Spider or K2, K12 Cub, that was also being effectively used. Strela 10 was being used. So all these were handling the threat of the various other systems that was coming from Pakistani side. And not to forget, S-400 has done phenomenal amount of work there. And any ballistic missile, even Delhi had a threat for a short time. Our Prithvi Air Defense System, Pradyumna, and Advanced Air Defense System, Ashwin, they were effectively being used. They were monitoring along with Barak and QR or MR SAM. All
Okay.
these
Yeah.
were on their duty. So we have handled all those things. What CDS has conveyed, our own indigenous system were as well being used, effectively being used, and it serves for the future that any time such exigency use, all this will be there. But there is one word of caution, and that caution is the technology on the drone is increasing leaps and forward. So don't take what has happened. You must assume, India must assume what modifications would have gone there, what upgradations would have gone into the drone technology of the enemy, and be ready for that. Megha.
Air Vice Marshal O.P. Tiwari, if we were to dissect this uh, quote of the CDS, when he says that every single one of those Pakistani loitering munitions and the drones were repelled by the Indian Armed Forces and its defense systems. He also said that all of these drones and munitions were destroyed. These drones and munitions did not end up damaging any of the military installations or civilian infrastructure, and also that a number of these drones were actually captured intact by the Indian Armed Forces. If you could shed more light and describe to us how this was made possible.
What action they have taken? Have they won? If anything happens in the area, put down all.
Air Vice Marshal O.P. Tiwari, if you can hear us. All right, we'll try to get that connection with Marshal O.P. Tiwari in just a short while. But coming back to you, General Dwivedi, the same question. How were we able to so successfully tackle the Pakistani attack by way of the drones and the munitions without even a single damage to our infrastructure?
Well, Megha, the point is that first and foremost, I think it is the total integration of your resources, because the air defenses are layered. You have the long range system, then you have the medium range system, then you have the close range system. Therefore, the integration of the system is very important. Second point is that there are two facets which come into the air defense: how early you can detect and how early you can engage. So therefore, it requires a combination right from your satellites, from your air warning systems, then your ground radars, and then you engage them. Now, in this layered system, we had the S-400, which has the longest range. Then we had the Akash systems, which are the medium close range. Then in the very close vicinity, what we call it close air defense, we had the guns like Shilka, ZU-3 guns, we had the Barak system. So the point is that first and foremost, our deployment was, I think, absolutely what we call copybook, that it had a layered deployment. Second is the handling of the system, because that's very important. The system per se don't deliver until you have the people who man the system. So therefore, the total integration between the system and the people who are manning the system also were very adept. And the last point is, you see, other side, we ought to see that technology didn't work as it was expected. I think either the Turkish drones or the Chinese drones, they did not actually perform as per the anticipated or as per the reputation. And also the Chinese defense systems, I mean, their radars like Hongqi 9, 15 systems, I think they didn't perform, or they rather underperformed. So all I can say is that in today's warfare, it is the man and the machine. Our systems, they are proven, they prove themselves. They are mostly indigenous system, of course. We had the combination of like S-400, that's the Russian system. We had the Baraks and also OSAC. So these are all combination. And secondly was the people behind this system. They did a remarkable job. That's why we are able to actually blunt the Pakistani threat. So all I can say is man-machine combination is very important. And today, technology is the driver on the battlefield.
Okay.
Megha.
Coming back to you, General Asthana, and also, another important message that has been sent out by the CDS is he says yesterday weapons cannot win today's wars. Tomorrow's technology is needed to fight today's battles. And why it is so important is that up until now we have been importing a number of our fighter jets, our drones and other arms and ammunition, whether it is Turkey, Russia, US or France. There has been, right after the war, a big announcement made for AMCA to be manufactured here in India indigenously. So, with regards to having our fighter jets, our arms and ammunition, our weaponry, which is world class, second to none, what is it going to take for the armed forces, for the government, for the defense ministry to take further action? I am going to mention about the number of MiGs, the Sukhois, and very recently the Jaguar that fell and led to the death of 2 Indian Air Force personnel, pilots, is something that needs to be reckoned with, because we have lost lives, precious lives of our armed forces without, and not in combat, not in war, but simply because the technology was so redundant. There was a lot of wear and tear of the jets that were being used, that were being flown for recce's and for training purposes, and this is something that's completely unacceptable.
Certainly, we need state-of-the-art air assets, and a lot of air assets of ours, they are of old vintage, and therefore the reliability certainly gets reduced in some manner or the other. Now, as far as the indigenization is concerned and Atmanirbharta is concerned, it is very good. Certainly, we need to develop our AMCA. There is no doubt about it. But at the same time, we cannot. AMCA may take time. We don't know whether it will take 10 years, 15 years, or how much. The fact is, in the interim, the adversary is getting the 5th generation aircraft, and we don't have one. And this is a major, shall I say, aberration and asymmetry which we need to work out. Similarly, they have many more AWACS than us. That also is an asymmetry which needs to be worked out. And therefore, what I would recommend is that while AMCA should go full blast, we should be putting all efforts for the AMCA and all the indigenous aircrafts, including Tejas. At the same time, in the interim, we need to buy at least 2-3 squadrons of the state-of-the-art aircraft, whether we decide to buy a Su-50 by the Russian one or by the American one or some other aircraft, because these two are the main 5th generation fighters. But we need to buy some aircraft state-of-the-art. That is certainly necessary, because we cannot give this kind of disadvantage to our pilots in a air-to-air combat in the future war. Same is the case with the other technologies. There is no doubt our innovative systems, our innovations have worked very well. Our drones have worked very well. And as far as manufacturing drones is concerned, there is a fair amount of indigenous capability also, which we need to redirect and regalvanize in a manner that our drone production becomes one of the highest in the world. Because that's the kind of drones we require to be able to use drone swarms in the manner in which we want to use against the adversaries.
Right. Air Vice Marshal O.P. Tiwari is back on the telecast with us. I'm going to get a response from you about India's capability and prowess in being able to build its own indigenous fighter jets. There are just a handful of countries that have been able to build stealth fighter jets. Now it's interesting to know that whether it is France, United States of America, or China, but there are a handful of other players, and amongst them is Turkey. How do you think that Turkey has the wherewithal to build these stealth fighter jets, 5th generation stealth fighter jets, and India is still struggling with it?
See what happened in India. We started off very early. In 1971, we had Maruts. Maruts were developed and they were effectively used. Accordingly, that entire project was held by the government, by obvious reasons, because defense procurement is such that nobody points finger at you. And this, most of the developing countries' leadership resort to this because there are a lot of cut involved in that. So if we had a capability of producing a Maruts in 1971, we operated, and after that we started off LCA, it was dying in the, it was lying in the very low somewhere domain, and nobody was looking at it. So manufacturing aircraft is not easy thing. It's a long drawn process. It takes a lot of time. See, advantage of Turkey, you are saying Turkey is also trying to develop, and it has developed, he wants to sell some aircraft. See, these are the European nations where they are close to each other. So there are certain parts, certain technology transfer, they can produce that. What you require is a lot of a lot of resources, but technology they share among themselves, and they can produce the aircraft. The Turkey aircraft is trying to compete with the Rafales, basically. Now what happens to stealth aircraft? Stealth is basically only 3 countries have got now: USA, Russia, and China. See, US and Russian aircrafts are well known, maybe Su-57 or F-35, but Chinese aircrafts are still not proven, though they have developed, and we have got serious, not only we, all the world, all the militaries have got serious doubt about the Chinese aircrafts because they are produced by reverse engineering. Reverse engineering means they take the aircraft, open and manufacture something like effectiveness or efficiency we saw in Op Sindoor. Now what happens? We have started off well. But it's unfortunate that over a period, this is why there is no procurement for years together. Our fighters' fleet has deteriorated and has gone down. Strengths are less. The aircraft which should have been phased out of Indian Air Force, we cannot phase them out because the numbers we have to have, because you have to have a fighting capability. There is no doubt, you still have got MiG-21 version, certain things. The Jaguars are very old, all the aircrafts are old, but we are carrying out serviceability and effectiveness because you have to have some force with us. Otherwise, if you deplete and let the fighter aircraft go because since new are not available, we cannot achieve any target. Now look at Op Sindoor. What we have done? See, SAM of old vintage were unserviceable. I'm not saying that it's self-sufficient, but the parts were manufactured in Ludhiana and other places, and they were made serviceable and they targeted, and we were able to neutralize a lot of drones and missiles also. So now what happens? War, depending upon your resources or what you have got, we have to develop our effectiveness or property with the limited resources. Time is not very far because AFCA or LCA Mark II, we are stuck because of the aero engines. Americans have been taking us for a ride. Now in this month, but a week back, we have got 2 engines down. 2 engines have been delivered to HL, and now they have promised to deliver about 10 to 12 engines.
Yeah, but then again the question, why is it a problem? Why is it such a hindrance that we are not able to build our fighter jet engines? And my second question over here, that yes, you said that there have been doubts that have been crept in with regards to the technology that the Chinese use in building their fighter jets, their fighter aircraft. But that's the narrative that China has taken this opportunity of Operation Sindoor in trying to change that narrative. And do you think it has had some success in being able to build? So with the support, I don't know, this has been a purposefully done exercise, narrative building, or unconsciously, but I think the Western media has been able to, or at least has tried to establish the fact that the Rafales were not of the quality that would have been expected in the war against Pakistan.
Listen, Chinese aircrafts. Look at the markets. Which are the countries which are buying Chinese aircraft? It's Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Azerbaijan. There is no other country, either from Asia or from Africa, are trying to purchase anything from Chinese because they don't have full faith in their technology and other process. Maybe various reasons, but what I presume is this, and it has shown that their radar system, their aircraft's effectiveness has not been much up to the mark to Sindoor. I'll not say they're total failure, but they have not achieved anything. A relative performance of Chinese aircrafts are far poorer than our old aircrafts were used, apart from the Rifles. And plus, now we have to remember one thing, it is not only the aircrafts and the machine, it is the man behind the machine is more important. What is the person? What is the qualification? When he performs the best, first of all, his morale has to be high, he has to be convinced what cause he is fighting for. Second, the type of training, type of dedication, and type of selection of people who are getting into the Air Force and the Army and the Navy. So that is very important. There is no doubt that we require a refurbish, we require a change of this aircraft. But fine, even Ukraine, You have seen even Israel and the Iran war also you have seen. Now the requirements and the concept of war phases is changing now. Concept of war is changing now. What you require is a missiles precision striking a target, and we don't have to really risk for aircrafts to go across. What you require now aircrafts for is to well within the Indian boundary and launch. Because what happens ki any ammunition which is launched from aerial platform, accuracy is much better than what is launched on the ground. Performance you have achieved,
Yeah.
for better accuracy you have to launch them from the air. But now things are past when the aircraft has to go carry out a dogfight, fight against each other. We require a just stable platform and launch and go. Now the way you
Yes,
have,
sir. I will have to interrupt you. I'm short of time, but I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast and airing your views.